Thank you so much for joining me. Like, genuinely, you are my second podcast guest. So, yay, you're early on. I'm really excited about all this.
I'm so
Um,
excited.
yeah. I think my partner will be walking in the door at some point because he went to go get food, but regardless, that's fine. It shouldn't be too much of an interruption. There's also puppies, but they're sleeping, so we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining. This, if you have not seen, this is the second episode of a podcast called We're Not Woke. And the tagline I have written down, I still have to memorize it, but it's a podcast where we share our perspectives on reality while rooted in the knowing that at the end of the day, none of us really have the answers to life's biggest questions. We're all just figuring it out and doing our best along the way. So, we might as well share what we learn and hope that it helps others too. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here. And if you want to share a little bit about yourself just for the listeners, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here. I saw like a little snippet of your partner talking.
Mhm.
I didn't see the whole podcast episode, but I saw that little snippet and I saw the title and I was like, oh, that's so cute. Like, of course. Of course. I love it. Love the vision, love the mission.
Thank you.
Um, you're welcome. I'm Magical Mads, Maddie. And we actually met, Sienna and I actually met over TikTok. She just reached out to me and we just kind of had like an immediate like connection and then we were going to collaborate. We knew we were going to collaborate in some way. So here we are as a product of that. I am a spiritual entrepreneur, spiritual creative, and I help other spiritual entrepreneurs and spiritual creatives to build their businesses, build their lives on foundations of success in terms of like their mental imagery, what they're thinking, feeling, helping them somatically, and in terms of like their nervous system, especially in relation to like people who have experienced trauma or like adversity in their life. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and I'm just really here to build community and connect and grow together because I love you and I love your mission and
Thank
it
you.
aligns with me so much. So
Thank
yeah.
you. I feel the same way about what you're doing.
And that's why we vibe so well. Like it's just like,
Totally.
I want to hug you.
I know. It's so funny the people that I've like the few people that I've reached out to online and it's just immediate is like, there's something. I don't know what it is, but like, hey, what's up? And then we connected over our astrology right away, like our zodiac stuff. Cause
Yeah.
you're a Cancer, Moon, Virgo, Sun, Scorpio rising, right?
Yep.
And then I'm Virgo, Moon, Scorpio, Sun, Leo rising. So we've got that little bit of a flip flop there for sure.
Exactly. And then in
Um,
Siberia, I'm a Leo, so it makes sense like you're
yep.
Leo thing. Like that's very yeah.
I love how you have that on your website too, because the people who will go to your website and look at what you're offering, I feel like that would totally be something that they're looking out for to be like, oh, okay, this does tell me a little bit about this person for sure.
Yeah, like hey, a little get to know me
Right.
fact. Yeah.
And on your website and in your title, it says that you are a quantum alignment specialist. And I wanted to ask you kind of what your definition of that is, because I think especially the word quantum and even the word alignment float around a lot in the spiritual community. And a lot of people have different grasps of what those mean. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, and I love that you asked that because I think that's so true, and I don't really define it anywhere on my website for this exact reason. Um, because I want people to have their own perspective about it. I don't want them to, take on my perspective,
Yeah.
but I like that you asked it. The way that I see it is like everything is a reality. So like every version of you is essentially like an avatar of a reality. So you can kind of tap into different realities all the time in any moment. Even like if you go from feeling to thinking, like those are two different realities, right? You change your perspective from thinking like yourself to thinking like an ant. That's going from two different realities. So you can do this all the time. So that's like what quantum is to me. So you're tapping into all of these different realities at one time, all of these different aspects, and you're bringing alignment, which to me is integration and just like wholeness, collaboration, like that sort of like stable, collaborative, co-creative energy. that's alignment of all of those aspects, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so what I do is I'm really good at helping you to so what happens in life a lot of time is something in this aspect of our life impacts this aspect of our life. And we don't see the connection. We're just like,
Yeah.
oh, those are totally unrelated. But they're actually really related. So what I'm really good at is I'm really good at seeing those two different perspectives and two different realities and bringing them together and helping you to create change through manipulating those two realities in a way that feels good for you. Like obviously it's not going to be negative manipulation, it would be
Right.
like you working with those realities to create better stories or
Yeah,
like
totally.
yeah. So for example, with myself personally, I experienced a lot of trauma when I was younger. So once I got older and I got to a space where I actually felt safe with myself to actually go and like explore those feelings that were in my body, I had to begin to like talk to that version of myself kind of like as this new version of myself as that parental figure that I never really had because that's what I was really looking for. And so I brought that like alignment in that way. And that's just like one method. It's different strategies, changes.
Yeah.
It's so fluctuative. But that was what worked for me in that moment. And that's the way that I quantumly aligned that aspect of myself to then show up in this reality because that's the aspect of me that likes to do things, that likes to like get things done, like, so I needed her. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
she was important. Like so I needed her to feel safe and loved and stuff. So I had to be that for that version of myself. I had to provide that emotional stability so that I could find that wholeness and then create that in my reality as a result.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I feel like everybody has so many different kind of like split versions of themselves, and they don't even realize that in a sense. And I don't know about other people, but before I got to the space that I am now, I definitely felt crazy. Like I would notice certain parts of myself and be like, well, that's not me, but it's a part of me. But like, why am I thinking those things? Like, why am I doing this? Right? Like,
That right there. Exactly. That's exactly
and
it.
people don't work with them together and being like, no, you are all of these things and it's okay. But like you said, you have to learn which aspects of yourself and which parts you want to align with and like live
Mhm.
in action with.
And who needs help too? Like, because there are some parts of you that are crying out for help and you avoiding them is not going to help.
Totally.
You have to take accountability as well and then align with those aspects that you really want to align with.
Yeah. It's so easy for everybody like to just shut those things out, for us to just be
Mhm.
like, nope, those are weird thoughts. I don't know what those are. I'm going to do something else. Like, don't want to think about it. Yada, yada, yada. And we have no ideas that it's like essentially these other little versions of ourselves that, like you said, are existing on this quantum field that we can't see physically, that are just fucking up our lives, or the ones making our lives amazing. And we don't even know who's partaking in what.
And the real reality is once you become aware of it, like you can then choose which path you want to go down. Like it becomes so like apparent that there are
Yep.
so many different options because then you can begin to see the quantum field like because you're aligning with that version of yourself that has that higher perspective that
Yeah.
is bringing that wholeness.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love it.
I
I love
know, right? And I feel like too, there's people, because okay, I don't know about the people that you have experiences with, but I still have a lot of people in my life that I encounter that when we talk about things like this, like metaphysical things, or seeing things on a quantum level, like it's so hard for people to imagine things in a non-physical way. So it's like, oh, what are you just like physically stepping into this world of aliens and like crazy stuff? And it's like, yes and no, but it like you said, once you realize it, it becomes so obvious and you can see the pathways, but it's so hard to understand, or it's so hard to explain to other people what seeing those pathways looks like, because it's so separate from our physical vision, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I
um
found I found it's funny that you say that, but because I found that the people who want to see, they'll see it.
yeah.
But the people who are resisting change and the people who want to stay in their like limited perspective, who want to stay safe, they're gonna find the objections. They're gonna find like the oh you're crazy, oh you're this, oh you're
Yeah.
that. And honestly, like a lot of my life, I got that as a kid. So when I started building my business, I was like, I don't want to receive that. Like, not my vibe.
Yeah.
So not that I intentionally avoid it or anything, because I don't.
Right.
But I don't tend to see those kinds of people because I don't even give them my energy. Like, I'm not even like, you don't wanna believe me? Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. When people
Yeah.
comment on my TikToks and stuff and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're manic. Oh, this stuff, that," all those, all the things that we love to get. I literally just look at it and I'm like, "Aw, thanks."
That's so funny. Dude, my cousin, she's so fucking hilarious. She's one of the few, this ties into what you're saying, but she's one of the few people who has just been so authentically herself her whole life. And she's such a little dork, like such a weirdo. I love her. But I remember when we were kids, we'd be like, Serena, you're so weird. And she'd be like, thank you.
That was me as a kid too, like, dead ass. I'm like, "Thanks.
Because
I'm
there's such a
unique."
weird like shame attached to that. And like
Yeah.
being different is a bad thing.
And also, if what I experience is mania, then sign me up.
I'm having a good time. I'm having a
Like,
grand
sign me
old
up.
time, buddy.
I can manage it. I got it. Like,
Right?
I'll be great.
Well, the
And
other thing
I
too is
love what
like,
I think about.
right? Totally. No, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I'm having fun. I love what I think about, and I'm not fucking hurting anybody out here. Like, I'm not out here screaming at people or doing anything harmful to anyone. That's the other thing. People, when you get labeled as crazy or manic or whatever, there is that thing attached to it. Like, oh, she's gonna fly off the handle. She's gonna hurt somebody. She's gonna do something
Yeah.
wild.
No, I'm not.
Like,
I'm
what the fuck am I gonna do? I don't think so.
just chilling. Like, I have some crazy stories that I could tell you that you'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But that's about the extent of like crazy or I don't know. I feel like if you care about other people's perception of you, then you're gonna get the validation of the people who wanna judge you, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're gonna receive what you're worried about
Yeah,
and what you're
exactly.
expecting from people. Totally.
Yeah, and it's like it's not like we have it all figured out or anything, because it's like I feel like a lot of people who are on that opposite end of the spectrum, they're like, "Oh, they think they have it all figured out," like, "Oh, they're delusional, this and that." It's like, "No, I'm just telling you my truth in this moment. That could change, like, 2 days from now, but,
Yeah.
like, it's quantum. We're going."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's always moving. Like, I don't fucking
Yeah.
know. I'm here today. I could be there tomorrow.
I could be a different version of me tomorrow. Like, I don't know who's gonna wake up tomorrow morning. You don't know who you're gonna get.
Totally. Yeah, that is a thing. I think that's like so tied into also why I titled my podcast We're Not Woke, because it's like I'm not claiming to have the answers for everybody. I'm not claiming to know everything, because it's like the more that I know, the more I know I don't know. I don't fucking
Mhm.
know anything. I'm
And
figuring
everything
this out day by day.
is unique to each person. Like,
Yeah,
everyone has their own, like,
their own
you have to
perspective based off of their
exactly.
experience of life. And
And their own strategies that work for them and their own mental things that work for them. Like, the way that I think isn't necessarily how you're gonna think, but we still have thoughts that align with each other and we still like can have conscious conversation. We can still have disagreements, like it's not about that. It's just like about being in your power when you're speaking, like fully feeling your truth,
yeah,
regardless of like needing anyone to say, "Oh, she's right." Like, I,
yeah.
I, I could be wrong.
Right. And it's so easy to feel like you have to back down as soon as somebody opposes your thought or opposes your thing. Cause like you said, so many people are looking for that outside validation. Because at the end of the day, we're all figuring it out day by day. And I think we know that deep down. So it can be difficult for us to stand in our truths if we haven't taken time to validate them ourselves. And then, yeah, if somebody will come and be like, you're not right, or we're waiting for somebody to say you're right.
But then you have to prove yourself, and then in proving yourself, you're
So
still
stupid.
perpetuating that reality that you don't have the authority.
Yeah, Yeah, that's true.
So you trap yourself in your own victimhood.
It's a vicious ass
I've done it so
cycle.
many times.
Dude, but fucking we all have, I feel like.
I've done it so many times. So yeah, and once I noticed that I was doing that, I was like, oh my gosh.
How do you go about um like noticing different aspects of yourself? Like your processing process. I don't know how else to word that.
I know what you mean. Honestly, I don't really try at this point anymore. It's kind of just it naturally happens at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
But when I first started, what I would do is like journaling really helped. I noticed that my handwriting would change and it would be like different versions of me writing and different emotions would make the words be different, like
Yeah.
not spelled different, but like
Yeah,
look
yeah.
different, you know? And like sometimes I would get really flustered and then I would mess up the spelling. You know, so I started to notice those things. And then I started to notice also how I was showing up with other people because I spent a lot of time alone
Yeah.
for a period of time. And then once I started like hanging out with people again, I was like, wow, I really noticed how I acted differently with people than when I was alone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, those are like two really different versions of me. And like how can I, bring them closer together because I want to show up as my authentic, like I don't want to have to put on a mask when I'm with other people, and
Right.
that's really what I'm doing. So I wanted to be more authentic to myself, and how could I do that? Well, I needed to feel safe in showing up as the version of me that is alone with other people, which
Yeah.
means I need to bring acceptance to the version of me that is alone, like when I do things alone. So for a while I had like a lot of shame around like being a girl and like having like earthly desires and like want like I
Mm,
because my dad was like super campy. He was like, woods, wilderness, and I like that vibe, but I just like had a lot of shame around it, right?
yeah.
So my process for working through that was to actually just accept all of the emotions, like literally just be like, oh wow, it makes sense. I see my logic, totally understand my logic. That makes complete sense why I thought that. That makes complete sense that that was taught to me. I see why my parents thought that. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, this makes sense. Logically, I can understand why I held these beliefs and thoughts and whatever. And when you bring that like level of acceptance, then it's like, okay, you feel like more neutral about it. It's like you don't blame yourself. There's no blame.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the shame kind of goes away because there's no blame.
Yeah.
So once you're in that like more neutral space, then you can be like, okay, well, that was then. Like, what am I creating now? Like, what do I want to embody now? Like, how do I want to show up now? What emotions do I want to feel now? Like, how do I want to, what am I going for? What is this? I was there. Okay. Now how can what do I want to feel? What did those feelings make me want to feel, And you already intuitively know that, but like then actually identifying it and like writing it out and like being deliberate about like so like in my daily life what I do is I'll look for things that remind me of my manifestations or that remind me of like how
Mm,
far I've come.
yeah.
So like I'll let myself feel gratitude for I'll remember a past scenario and I'll let myself feel appreciation for where I am now in relation to that past scenario or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Just bringing like that acceptance to not try to push it away because when you try to push anything away it just comes back to you full force or it comes in the back door and then
Yeah.
you're surprised.
You're
Yeah.
fucked.
Yeah, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
So that's why you gotta just face it, and as you face the things more it becomes more easy to face the bigger and bigger things, and then throughout your daily life it just becomes easy to just do the things and nothing builds up, and then
Right.
it's like more flowy, and then yeah, I feel like that's like my process for processing, but now it's just kind of like flowy.
It's integrated. Yeah. It's like you're to a point of self-awareness where you have like moments of, yeah, I hear that. I hear
Yeah.
that.
But having the strategy at first did help. Like,
Yeah,
just,
people have to learn how to listen to their own thoughts for sure. And I feel like writing it is definitely a good way, because otherwise, because I did the same thing to an extent. Like journaling has helped me a lot in the same regard. But I remember noticing myself in the beginning being almost afraid to write down the things that I was thinking, because I was like so ashamed of the things that I was thinking. And I was like, do I really want to put this onto paper where somebody else can find it one day, maybe, or whatever it is? And then I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, who do I think I am? Like, why do I have such a problem with these thoughts? Like, what is going on? They're just thoughts. And I can change those thoughts, but I have to start by listening to them. And like you said, accepting and acknowledging that they're there. And yeah, that is not an easy process in the beginning for sure. I mean, I still have moments where I notice myself pushing certain things away, but then I'm able to come back and be like, ooh, what was that again? Why? Like maybe I need to sit down and write it out.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I've also noticed that, like in terms of listening to your thoughts, I had a voice in my head when I was with other people that was just like so judgmental. And what it really was is that I was so jealous because I felt like everyone else had life like given to them and I had to really strive for everything that I had, which was not really true at all. It was just like this unconscious belief that I had like in my mind. And I realized that I was judging people unconsciously, like when I was with them. And when I was with myself, it was because I was judging myself, like when I was with myself. And that's why I was feeling all of that shame, right?
Yeah.
So that pattern, identifying that pattern, like literally changed my life, like changed my life. And it's all because I was willing to be aware of my thoughts, especially the bad ones,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially the bad ones.
Yeah. You got to hang out. You got to hang out with the bad ones. Oh, see, there's the upgrade. See, okay, hold on. Let me see if it works this time. Sorry to put a pause on it.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think it's a process too of like leveling up the mindset as well.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it definitely depends. I mean, it's kind of just like, and I got a lot of flack on one of my videos because I talked about living by the laws of nature, and I was just a misspeak, and people are like, anyway. But it's like wanting to live a more natural life, but being born in this society, it's almost like some people who aren't working towards that don't realize how much work it takes to get towards that. Like, in order to make a natural life work with the way that I'm used to living and knowing how to function, I can't just go buy a tent and pitch up on the side of the road. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to be a homeless person. Like, that's not how that works.
yeah, yeah, like yeah, I was feeling the same way. I was trying to go non-tox. I was trying to do all the things. I was trying to be completely off grid. Like I wanted to have everything. I wanted to be so independent. And then I realized, what am I like? If I'm going for that, that also affirms the reality that community is obsolete. So I just like had to kind of let go of trying to do it all myself. And so now I'm at a point where like I still have that vision, but it's more collaborative. Like I
Yeah.
don't see it as like me doing everything myself. Like and I also see it as a process as well.
Totally.
And as you were saying, you know, knowing how to function, like sometimes those past versions of yourself, they need to make reappearances, you know. You need that latte. Like you need that like that inner child like she needs that latte,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with that. Totally.
Exactly. So yeah, that's just
That's
like the
so
way.
wild. I'm very much on the same page as you with that too. Because one of my main goals for just starting this kind of like social media journey in general is, like you said earlier, building community and connecting with people who are on the same page, and seeing a plan far in the future. My main goal in its loose structure is to connect with a bunch of like-minded people over the years and eventually invest into a plot of land where we can build a community. Because exactly that, I can't do it by myself. I don't want to do it by myself. I want to be surrounded by people that I love and that love me, and we can make our little world together. There's no reason that we can't. So
Exactly. Yeah, and I feel the same way, and I think that like for me, I see like multiple of those, and then we just like travel between them.
yeah, totally.
That, that's my vision.
Like different plots of land next to each other kind of thing.
Or like in different places. So like you
Oh
have one
yeah.
in Hawaii, you have one in like the Caribbean somewhere, you got one in South America, you got one over in somewhere in the east, you know?
Girl, we'll have the one in South America. That's what we're planning right now. We're like, Costa
Yeah.
Rica, let's do Costa Rica.
Yeah, like that's that yes, exactly. See the vision. And build all of them and have it's like my idea of is like artist retreat vibes, but you don't have to be an artist. Just like artist retreat vibes, you
Yep.
know, and like a co-collaborative living space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and have like a space where all the tools can be like a studio so that everybody can go work and do their
Exactly.
art and be creative 100%. And I follow this girl named Fully Raw Christina, and I have for a while. And her whole thing is like raw vegan, but she recently moved to a plot of land on Hawaii somewhere, I think. And she planted like 700 fruit trees. I was like, I want that.
Same. I that's like dream.
Like
Like
I
a
want to be able to walk out in my backyard and pick all of the fruit that I want. Thank you very
yeah.
much.
And I think that's why having the land would be so good too for a community space like that, because then you still have the space to go be by yourself, to go, you know, and then you
Yeah.
have the community as well. It's just like beautiful. And we're
Right.
already seeing that with like big, like, what is it called? The hype house. Like people on TikTok, like they're already doing these kinds of things.
Yeah,
So it's
that
only a
form of
matter of
thing.
it's only a matter of time before it trickles out into the spiritual community as well. And it already is. Like I already see it happening, but more and more and more and more and more, you know?
Yeah, what do you think is gonna what have you channeled and what do you think is gonna be the way of the future in the next like 20, 30 years?
Okay, immediately the whole financial system is about to shift. Like the
Yeah.
whole shit is gonna go kerplunk, and the dollar is gonna completely shift. Like we're gonna go digital. Everything's gonna
Yeah.
go digital. That's the first thing. Um, Presidency is gonna like that's not like it's gonna be more of like a global system. We're gonna go global.
Yeah.
The world's going global. And at the same time, there's going to be so first we're going to see this period of like recession. It's going to be a receding period, and then we're going to really expand. Technology is going to boom. AI is going to boom. We're going to have it's going to be in a good way too. Like it's not going to be like an invasive, like it's going to be like very, you know, lots of money is going to be distributed to families who have cultivated a lot of positive karma. Like the energy dynamics are going to shift a lot.
Yeah.
So like where the world is right now, all of that is falling apart. All of those structures are falling apart. They've been falling apart for the past like 20 years. So we're watching that like completely end, and as that's completely ending, we're seeing these new structures be built with like NFTs, like Bitcoin, all the things. But it's going to expand further than that, and there's going to be a general network that is kind of like the structure for the quantum system, and then that is going to just allow us more freedom
Yeah.
in our lives. We're going to have so much time. We're going to be allowed, we're going to all be like it's going to be like the Renaissance.
Yeah. I I definitely have a similar vision.
And some people are going to go crazy,
Oh
like
God, yeah. Oh
yeah.
God, yeah. I don't think it's gonna be because the media likes to push the idea of an apocalypse, but I
Oh, but
don't,
there will be zombies in some way. Like they're not going to know what to do with themselves. They're just
yeah.
going to be like, tell
Oh,
me what to do. Like
yeah.
they're like, you
Yeah,
know,
that's fair. That is very fair. It's not going to be zombies in terms of eating brains, but they're going to be looking for other people's brains because they didn't nurture theirs in a way that helps them once all that happens, I feel like. Who knows?
exactly.
But it's almost like you can
Nail on
kind of
the
see
head
it
with that.
already. I mean, like I see it in living in, this is the first time that my partner and I have really lived like in a city. And there's
Mhm.
people who they walk 3 blocks without looking up from their phone. I'm like, where are you?
Ugh, every time I catch myself doing that for too long, I'm like, I gotta stop. Like,
Yeah, I
catch
know it's hard.
myself.
It is hard to keep the balance for sure. And so I can totally
Yeah.
understand where people, if they're not focused on other things, like if their world is super focused in this portal that we have with us all the time, yeah, like why be out of it? Especially when the
Yeah.
world feels so crazy, it's like, oh, I'd
Yeah.
rather just be here.
But then the thing about that is when the world feels so crazy, then you go onto social media and it reaffirms the crazy.
It makes it feel even crazier. Totally. Because then I'll go outside and I'll be like, it's not that bad.
Not that bad. We're fine. It's
This
fine.
is happening? Where? Just on my screen? Oh,
But
okay.
then that's that emotional validation. Like we're constantly getting these hits of emotional validation, dopamine validation of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what's happening. But like really what is happening is what you tell yourself is happening.
Yeah. 100%. a hundred
So
percent.
even like in relation to like your phone, like when you're on your phone and stuff, like you could be like, I'm telling myself that like this is happening, like I'm doing this because of this and this is gonna make this happen. Like you delusionally tell yourself that and it could work.
For real. And that's the other thing. People do that all the time. They don't even realize it. It's just like they're
Exactly.
going with it because it's in front of their face. And it might
Hmm.
not even be in front of them physically, but since it's on their phone and in front of their face, it's like, well, there it is.
Yep.
Whoop, there it
Whoop, there it is.
is.
That's exactly what I thought when she said that.
But yeah, I definitely, God, the world is going to be so fucking trippy when all that happens. Like,
Yeah, I would love to hear your perspective. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
I definitely similar vibes. Like I see, yeah, the structures of how society is in terms of cities, like where I'm in, just crumbling in their own way. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a crazy apocalypse where everything's exploding and it's not going to be like full on hellfire like the media wants it to seem like it's going to be, but it is going to be hard. And there's going to be people freaking out and not knowing what to do with themselves. And then there's just going to be people moving on and moving out. And like you said, I think there is going to be, because there's no way of stopping technology at this point. It's such a big part of our lives, and it can be so beneficial that I'm hoping to see at least people start working towards using that in a more integrative way with how we live as opposed to a controlling way. Because right now it exists in a very, like, if you don't have technology, you don't have a life kind of seemingly way. But I think that it will exist in a more integrative way where it supports us, but it doesn't control us in the same way.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of that shift. I'm sure you've heard it talked about, but how the earth is going to split. And I think that's kind of how I see it. Like there are going to be these completely two different realities existing where there are people clinging on and holding on to this old society and reality that they're comfortable with and not knowing where to go. And other people who are like, well, that's not working anymore. I'm living this way and we're figuring it out this way. So who knows how long it'll take before the split is that obvious. But like you said, with the zombies and the splits, like you can already kind of see it happening.
In certain areas, it's so much more prominent than others. Like where
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are actually like aware of things, you can tell the difference. Like especially like even Miami, like I noticed the difference of
Oh, I bet.
like of the energy. It's just different.
Yeah.
And people do realize it. Like you can see it. It is kind of obvious. You can see when people are moving wonky or like weird or like, like you can see people's intentions. Like and
Yeah.
the place that I operate from, like no matter where I go, I can see people's intentions because that's the reality that I choose to live in. Whether or not anybody else chooses to live in that reality, like they can live in the reality where they don't know anything, but I can see very clearly what what is going on and like
Totally.
the intentions and all the things. So
Yeah. How far are you from Miami? If I don't want to like out where
no,
you are, but
I live in Dania Beach, so it's like 45 minutes from Miami. So
gotcha.
Miami.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it more rural where you're at?
It's definitely more like laid back, like older people. The hood is kind of like right next to me, but at the same time, it's not as industrialized or built up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my God. I don't know if you can hear that car going off in the background.
yeah, I can hear
Shows where I'm at in terms of that. Dude, people honk every day. And it'll be like Sunday morning. And my partner's always like, it is Sunday morning. What are you honking about? Why are you in a rush? Like, where are you going? LA is ridiculous though. Like LA is so I like you said, going to Miami, you can really feel the difference and see the difference in the world. And it's just, I've never been able to feel how dense the energy is before and how many people are fighting with themselves internally. And like you said, you can see the intentions with people and see those things. It's like, yeah, I can walk down the street and be like, whoa, that person is fucking fighting some demons right now, or everybody, or this person is just like completely absent. And it's so
Mhm.
crazy and it's so hectic. And I notice for myself too that it makes my own internal thoughts more hectic and like loud, and it's more difficult for me to like center myself and find where I'm really coming from.
I've noticed that as well being in the city. I think one thing that the city has taught me the most is how to have boundaries around stuff like that because when I was first here, I would pick up on everybody's energy. I would be all up in everything. I would feel everything and I would get sick. I would
Yeah.
literally get sick. And I was like, what? Like, I don't get sick. Like, this is weird. Um, so I realized that like I had to start setting better boundaries, and what that looked like was like literally not paying attention to that person who's walking down the street looking
Mm-hmm.
like they're crazy, like literally deliberately ignoring them, deliberately not
Yeah.
making eye contact with them, like knowing that they're giving me attention and giving my attention to something else intentionally. Like that's that's the boundaries that I have set. So now like and if you don't pay attention, if you don't give energy to it, it's less likely to come back to you.
Yeah.
So it like kind of just like filters out. And even though I'm close to the city, like I don't thankfully have really many of those interactions or anything like that. And when I do, it's so easy for me to just pivot and focus on something that feels better rather
Yeah.
than like continue to live where that happened, you know?
Yeah, no, I hear
Yeah.
you. I feel like I'm in the same process. Like that's why I'm living here right now, is to learn exactly that, because I'm so fucking sensitive. Like we've lived here for just over a year. And the first year, dude, I was fucking crying all the time. And we live in a studio. Like we're dog sitting right now, so this is not our place. But
Hmm.
we live in a studio. So I would like lock myself in the closet all the time and just like in a dark space, just try and get all of it out because it's fucking overwhelming. And it's just so much literal energy. And I remember having a meditation here one time, because this house is even closer to a busier place than where our place is. And I could
Hmm.
like feel my body buzzing from the electricity lines that are running above the house, from the people that are screaming on the street. And in my mind, I could see it was like I could see myself in the center, and it looked like, you ever see the movie Venom? Or
Mm-hmm.
like how in movies, like evil entities will look like shadows trying to cover things or whatever, like creeping up. It was literally that. Like there was a light in the center that was me that I could see, and there were all these black blobs of shadows like trying to cover it and like fucking moving all over the place. And I was like, ah. So that shit's
Wow.
intense.
I've felt the same thing with the electricity here, but I've been working with energy for a long time, so I used to experience what you experience, and I feel like now I'm at a point where I'm being tested to transmute that energy
Yeah.
instead of um like be blocked by it in a way.
Right.
Like I have the objective ability to like just see it and kind of use that as my power, and it kind of makes me go a little psychotic and I get this like giggle, and it's like kind of really like crazy, but I've experienced very similar things with like the electricity and like feeling all of that energy being buzzing.
Yeah.
But I and in the past it has really scared me, But very recently, I had an experience like that here, and it wasn't like that at all. It was like euphoric almost. I was
That's
like
good.
giggling. I was like, yeah, it was like I had all that power. Like the city is mine. Like, but not really,
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
really.
No, I hear
You
what
know?
you're
But
saying. You
I'm
feel
so
like
connected.
empower. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. Like we're so connected to like think about how like electricity is like woven into your house. Like that's like your body is your temple, your body is your house. Like electricity is woven into your body. Like that's so cool to think about. And then this is just a reflection of that. And like we're so all interconnected. And then you have all of that power. And then it's just like the electricity goes and tweaks, and you're like, ah.
Right? It's like you feel it and then you're like, oh, but I know what to do with it now. It's not just in my body, taking over my body. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
It's no longer overwhelming. It's no longer like something that gives me anxiety. I see it as a
Yeah.
power source now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
That makes sense. God, I'm on my way because I'm definitely not where I was last year, just being completely overwhelmed by it. But I definitely still feel like I
Yeah.
have some lessons to learn here in terms of harnessing that.
It used to really overwhelm me like up until very recently. So this
Yeah.
is a new shift, like very new shift within like the January of this year. Like
When did you said you've been working with energy for a long time. When did you like what's your channeling story? Because I know you do channelings as well for people. So when did you sort of start to become familiar with those voices, those feelings, those energies, stuff like that?
I kind of always was, of course, like
Yeah.
everyone says that. I kind of always was, but it became really prominent when I had my abortion. I like became so I was so distraught. Like I literally disconnected from my body. And in order to like actually start living again, like I had to really come back into my body and invite acceptance and all these things back. And in that experience, I there was a time where I like kind of broke and I could feel my consciousness split into four different aspects.
Wow.
One of them was my mom. One of them was it wasn't like actually my mom,
Right,
like
right, right,
actually
right. Showed
there
up
was like
as that.
their therapy. Yeah. So my mom and my dad, and then me, and then like a masculine, but like not a masculine that I know, just like my masculine, like like me and then my masculine. My mom, my dad, me, and my masculine. And it was at the point where it was like I called my mom and I told her what happened, that I was pregnant. And she was like, "Do you want to have the baby?" And I was like, "No." And it was after I got off the phone, those four voices came into my head. And my dad was like, "You should have the baby, like don't do that, blah, blah, blah." My mom was like, "It's okay, do whatever you want." I was like, "Ugh, I feel like shit because I actually really want a baby, but I don't really want a baby under these conditions. And does that make me a perfectionist?" And just going on.
Right, right, right.
And my masculine being like, "Dude, just chill out. You're okay. Everything's cool. Like, no matter what you do, everything's gonna be fine. Whatever decision you make, everything's gonna be fine." And in that moment, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like that happened. And for like a year and a half after that, I was working with the energies of my mom and my dad specifically in my mind, kind of like alchemizing their energy in my auric field
Yeah.
and in my inner child's life to kind of create that neutral balance and to reestablish myself as the authority figure in that relationship, in that dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, and so just like doing that was really what unlocked that process was unlocked after I started to do light language, which was just like me just channeling, and that was unlocked after I had a really abusive relationship with my
Mm,
ex-boyfriend. It was abusive on both sides, like completely take accountability. Um, but what happened at the end of that relationship was he basically like triggered me to the point where I like split. Like I
mm,
like literally like went back to my inner child version of myself and released all of the emotions that she never released, and I just screamed them all out loud to him. And I felt so much shame about that. And so I had to filter through those emotions, and light language was like the only thing that I could actually do to filter through the emotions, because any other way I would attach to the
yeah.
emotion. And so light language was like how I would just authentically express, and like I know that I can put intention in it, and like I can feel what I'm putting into it as I'm doing it. So like I know what it's about. Like so that's kind of how that happened. But I was always really in touch with energy, and I would always be able to talk to like animals and like plants and trees and all the things. And one time when I did mushrooms with my ex-boyfriend before we broke up, I just had this experience where I saw all these eyes in the trees, and all these eyes were just like looking at me. They were just like watching my every move. And I was like, ooh, I kind of like that. They were like friendly. They were friendly. They were friendly. It was like a good vibe, you know, it was like they have something to tell me, right?
Yeah.
And I just got really good energy from that. And they just reminded me that we were all so connected. Like everything is so connected. That reminder again. And I went inside and I was laughing, and my ex-boyfriend, he like looked at me and I was like cracking the fuck up. Like I was geeking out. And he looked at me and he was like, "You're crazy, you're scaring me, like all this stuff, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's like really like reflective."
Yeah.
And after that, that is when I went and I we broke up like pretty shortly after that happened. Because I was like, "You're judging me.
Eye-opening experience.
You're judging me." Like, what? Bye. So pretty shortly after that happened, I went to a spiritual retreat. And at that spiritual retreat, I just fully immersed myself in the experience and the land. And I was just getting downloads about things. And even before I had gone to the retreat, I was getting downloads. I was connecting with the land. I was traveling. And it was just like my ancestors were speaking to me. Like I couldn't not, I just always have had that ancestral presence around me. You know what I mean? So then I started doing like tarot and all that kind of stuff, and that's what led me into the light language, and then the building and building until I do what I do now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's trippy. I feel like, because you said earlier, that's everybody's story about being always connected. But I feel like
Yeah.
that is the case in terms of all of us having that ability. But definitely, at least I wasn't. I don't feel like all of us were aware of it at the time. Because I don't know about you, but my mom saw psychics when I was younger.
Hmm.
So I was aware of what they were. And so I always put it outside of myself because I always assumed I was like, okay, that's clearly a special power that this person has that I don't have because I didn't really understand what it looks like. Um,
Hmm.
so for me, it like came in much later in life. But for you to be aware of it, you were aware of that when you were
I was
younger?
I was kind of always aware of it because my mom would watch witchy shows when I was younger, and I would like see them. And we lived in this house. This is really why, because my dad was like obsessed with aliens and like
Oh, really?
weird. Yeah, he was like weird. Like he was like oddly connected. He's an Aquarius. He was oddly connected to like the stars, and like he just had that essence about him. So I was always like kind of like spiritual in a way, but at the same time my mom's side of the family was very like religious.
Mm,
And so we lived in this house that was in the middle of the woods, and I would just always see shit. At night, I would be downstairs. I would always see shit. I would always tell them about dreams, crazy dreams that I would have. I would have dreams about midgets. And they would be like really thoughtful stories, like plot
yeah.
lines. Like, and I would remember every single detail. I would remember the lesson. I would remember everything about it. And I would tell them to my parents and be like, what the fuck? You're like, you know everything, like you're psychic. So they would always tell me that when I was growing up, but I just always thought that was like a TV show thing. I was like, ah, oh, no,
Uh,
not real. It's like TV shows, you know? But I always believed in nature and like evolution and science. I was really into like the
same.
logic, like logically, you know? And then my dad was super into the stars, and he would talk about the stars all the time. And I would always have these like curious impulses, but it wasn't like I was aware that I was connected. It was just like I knew that there was something more, and that was part of my life.
Mm,
No question, no doubt. And I always knew that I was going to like people were going to know me. Like people were going to hear me speak. People were like I would have something to say. And it would be about that. Like it would be about the connection to the stars, like something about like there's something. And I was always really connected to Egypt and like Easter Island, like stuff like that. When we would read about it in school, I'd be like, I know about that. Like low key, I would like remember it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of like a past life remembrance.
Hmm.
Like, and then as I evolved spiritually, I would get more clear on those remembrances and on those like experiences and what those things meant to me specifically,
Yeah.
which is kind of what Mateus de Stefano talks about in his work. He like has experiences like that all the time. When I found out he was doing that, I was like, oh, that's so cool because it made me feel validated in me doing it.
Right.
It's not just a TV show. It's not just
Right.
drama.
I know, right? They put that stuff in TV shows. Here's the thing. So my parents, I grew up with two parents in the film industry and two siblings in the film industry. So that's like a very big part of my life. What a lot of people don't understand about TV is if they put it on TV, it's because they want you to think it's only on TV, but they get those stories from real life.
Yeah.
And like so many people miss that in some way. And it's so funny to me. But yeah, because there's so many things like witchy stuff and magical things and alien things that are in movies and TVs. And it's just like, wow. Like, I feel like there are so many people that have a connection to those things and don't even understand why. And that's
Yeah.
why there's like crazy fans of shows and certain stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all have that sort of past life remembrance thing, and we're connected to that reality at some point, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that when you tap into those things and you go deeper into those things, they give you portals of knowledge to help you in this life.
Totally.
But it's funny that you say that because I was just thinking like I was obsessed with Charmed, first of all. I don't know if you yeah, that was my
Yeah.
show of choice, my mom's show of choice, Charmed. Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Oh, my
and
dad was on that show.
yeah, love that show. And I was also obsessed with Area 51, just like as a general topic.
Hmm.
In like eighth grade, I wrote like a 13-page research paper on Area 51.
Really? That's amazing.
Yes. And yes, like this is what I like. I was put in an enrichment class because they're like, oh, she's too smart for regular
Really?
English. And then we would just talk about crazy shit in that class. Like,
Wow.
yeah. And we could do our papers on whatever we wanted. So like I would always just, explore my creativity. And we did like poetry and stuff too, so that was an outlet for me as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I feel like, you kind of your life kind of builds you up to be the person that you become.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Of course. 100%.
Yeah.
I resonated with you too when you said like you always knew that you were going to be speaking and about those things. I always knew that I was going to have an audience and people who supported me for being myself. For a long time, I thought it was going to be through acting, and because that's like the path that I was on for a long time. And
Yeah.
but there was always something about it that just didn't sit with me. Like when people ask me why I do acting, I like had a hard time answering because I was like, it's not the thing I love most in the world. I'm not like these other people where I want it more than anything. Like I'll die just so I could be an actress or whatever. I just like
Yeah.
never felt that. I was like, I like being on set. People are fun. I like being creative. But what I would really dream about is like being on talk shows and like getting to be myself and having supporters because of that. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, now that I'm where I'm at in my life now, I'm like, oh, I didn't know this side of the internet was going to exist back then. So this makes a whole lot more sense.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely, and I also I had no idea that it was going to be tied so much into kind of spirituality and my own personal growth and stuff like that because like you said, I was also really into like science and the logic side of things growing up. And but now that I'm at a place where I realize it's all so intertwined, like I am still a very logical person. These things are all my experience, ergo logical thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But that's so nuts. That's so crazy that like when you do channelings for other people, you it said on your website that you do them you could do them over a Zoom call or like a recording. Do you channel into other people's guides as well, or do you just take messages from your guides and your connection? I mean, I guess.
It generally depends on the person and the client, because if you're further along spiritually, like, your guides are gonna advocate for you and, like, they'll just talk to me, like,
Right.
we'll do that. But if you're not, like, and you're just, like, getting into it, I'll just go general. I won't even, like, try and use my guides or your guides. It will just be a completely general experience, like, from the Pleiadian or, like, Archer, something of that nature, like, or just, like, general guidance for the highest good of all. Like,
Yeah.
that's the key phrase, for the highest good of all.
Yeah.
I when I channel, I don't think about it. I'm not like, I'm trying to do, I literally,
Right.
you're like, oh, I want this. Like, you tell me your intention and you tell me, like, your name and, like, all the things, like, we get to know each other a little bit. We have a conversation. And then I kind of just let back and I just, like, let everything go. And usually it's for you. It's triggered by you, but it's general enough to help anyone,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
so
understand
it'll
that.
help you specifically more so than anyone else because it's triggered by you, but it could help anyone
Yeah.
theoretically.
No, that makes sense. Because, well, and that's the thing too, I feel like about channeled messages in general, they're like everything in that realm, our guides, our ancestors, or whatever, they are working towards the highest good of all. So it's always going to be information that is relevant to pretty much everybody at some point, because that's
Yeah.
just like the general message from the universe or whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I feel that for sure. Okay, listen, I had so many questions written down and we've just like been gabbing away. Um, um, oh, this is a good question. I guess you maybe kind of talked with this in terms of sitting with the like darker parts of yourself, um, or the parts that weren't so comfortable. In terms of the presence that you have online now and kind of knowing that you would speak to people, because I know I struggle with this, but how did you kind of deal with any possible like imposter syndrome? Was that a thing that you've come up against in,
Totally.
especially in your line of work? I mean, like being a life coach, especially, like helping people with their lives.
Yeah, totally. And the biggest culprit of that was me looking for external validation.
Yeah.
And when you learn that, like, you're the one who decides the parameters, like, and what I mean when I say that is, like, you decide how other people see you. Like, you get to be the
Mm-hmm.
third person voice of your
Yeah.
life. You get to be like, oh yeah, Maddie, she's thriving. Yeah, Maddie, she's doing great. Maddie, I love her content. Like, she's amazing. But if you're constantly questioning how other people are showing and you're looking for that emotional validation, then you're not taking the charge and it will be decided for you based on your beliefs or based on your doubts and fears.
Yeah.
So once I learned to stop letting that happen, stop outsourcing that, the imposter syndrome kind of just falls away because it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not questioning myself.
Right. Like I'm
And if
not trying
anybody
to pose as anyone.
exactly, and if anybody does, like, question me or like, honestly, I'm not gonna defend myself because I don't care that much.
And they don't know.
You're not buying from me. You're not paying me any money. Like, I'm not giving you anything.
No, that's fair enough. That's like value exchange, for sure. 100%. Like if you're
Exactly.
just giving me garbage and there's no value. And 'cause that's the other thing too. Those people who just talk shit, they're not even providing any value to their own lives. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you
Exactly.
wasting your energy, man?
When people comment on my TikToks, and because usually it's TikTok where I get the hate.
Same.
When I get hate comments on TikTok, it's like I see the comment and I used to, like, engage and, like, try and offer a different perspective for, like, if some, like, a potential client, like, landed on the page and they saw and they wanted to see my perspective shift. That was my perspective of it. And
Mm,
now I'm like, I'm not even gonna answer you. Like,
yeah.
matter of fact, I might delete your comment. Like, that's it. And then
Yeah.
I'm going on with my day. Like, that's the extent. I'm not formulating a sentence. I'm not justifying it. If you're in on my frequency, you're going to see the way that I'm seeing, not
Yeah.
necessarily agree with me, but you're going to see what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
like, you can have your own perceptions, but, like, you're going to be able to see my perspective too, and you're not going to be like Because judgment is jealousy at
Totally.
the end
It's
of the
same
day.
shit.
At the end of the day. So if you're judging me, then you're
Like you got
like,
something tied up in there, bud.
you feel inferior. So
Yeah.
already I won the conversation. I don't have to do anything. Like, you know what I mean?
No, totally. It's like hey, I didn't even try to make you feel that way. You're choosing to feel inferior. That sucks. I'm gonna move along.
It's like they're having a conversation with themselves, but they're projecting themselves onto you. And you like either have to decide, okay, I'm gonna resonate with the projection that they're throwing at me, or I'm just gonna be like, you're talking to yourself. Like,
To me, like, why are you giving me that? I didn't need to hear this. I used
exactly.
to I used to do that like out of my mouth. Like I wouldn't that's such a weird way to say. I used to really say shit. Like I remember when I was a lot more insecure, like when I was in my late teens, I was so insecure and just like hated how I looked, hated who I was, like all of it. But obviously I didn't see it that way because I was like, no, of course I love myself. Like otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I would sit and there would be other girls around me that I was judging because I was judging myself, and I would open my mouth and I would say those things under my breath. So like, oh dude, I was such a little sassy bitch. I would like say those things and loud enough so they could maybe hear me, but quiet enough to where they probably won't. And I was just like, like, oh my God, that's nasty. Like, why am I saying those things? And then it's like, oh shit, I'm saying those things and worse things to myself. That makes sense.
And then once you catch yourself in that, you're like, oh, I feel silly.
Right, you're like, oh oops, like sorry, I didn't mean that, like I don't even know you.
I'm so sorry. Like I my bad.
Oh my God, I'm so happy I was not on the internet the way that I am now during that time. Like I cannot imagine the fucking pain that I would be going through if I was.
I honestly think it was protection. I feel the same way. Like, yeah.
100%. Like nothing. I'm not going to be given anything I can't handle until I'm at a point where I can handle it. Because,
Yeah.
oof, no, I would have deleted my account, cried in the closet some more. That's my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But
No, I feel I used to cry in the car a lot. When I had a car, it was the car for me. So
I feel like for women, it's, I, I feel like so many women tend to look for a small, safe space because we haven't, I mean, at least from my experience and what I know, so many women haven't been given that safe space from their like masculine figures growing up. So it's like, yeah, our intuition, our instinct is to hide and deal with it ourselves.
wow. Yeah.
Do you
Very true.
feel like part of our mission as, because sometimes I think about why I came in as a woman this lifetime around and why I'm involved in all the things that I'm involved in. Do you feel like part of our mission is to help the men as well in terms of finding their connection and finding their um the like light side of their masculinity to be connected with?
I feel like that's the whole point of incarnating as masculine and feminine is like to guide each other, is to like
Yeah.
have those integrative conversations, those integrative relationships where like you guide the masculine in some ways, but then the masculine also guides you.
Yeah.
And that goes along with like showing someone how to love you, showing someone how, because me being around men, like I start to pick up on like how they like to receive things, how they, what they like, what
Yeah.
they don't like, you pick up on those things, and if you're paying attention, you care, like you're gonna enact those things.
Yeah.
um so teaching yourself in that way so that you can show up better in other relationships too,
Yeah.
so you can show up as a better feminine all around. I feel like it's like both parties need to kind of guide each other. Like they always say
Yeah.
masculine leads, but I don't think that that's
It depends
not.
on what.
It
It
depends
depends
on
on what.
what. And I also think that like the way that I see it is like the masculine dominates in the bedroom and the feminine dominates in life, okay? And you can switch it up sometimes and you can play a little bit, but like at the end of the day, the woman dominates life and the masculine dominates in the bedroom.
I don't disagree.
That's just, and even as like a woman, if I were into women, I would see it the same way. Like it would be like this, like
There's got to be a balance of the energies.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely feel like in my relationships too, it's even when I'm coming from if I'm coming from my feminine, it's like I'm leading the charge, but maybe not so much in a physical sense. Like it's the woman's, like I kind of relate this to the like the Greek goddess no, not Artemis, Athena. She was like the goddess of war strategy, right? And then there's Ares, who's the god of war. So it's like the woman is the one who strategizes and finds the patterns and finds the connection, and the man is one who steps out the front door into the physical world to put it into action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ugh, men.
And that's what I mean by the woman dominates in life and the man dominates in the bedroom, because the man is the one who does the action, who like shows you, and who also is integral with his action. So like he says he's going to do something and then he does it, like stuff like that. Like that shows a woman that she's safe and shows her that she can show up in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
that's
physical protection. That's what they're here for. Not
exactly.
like
And
only,
but it's the same with like having a coach too. Like when you have a coach, they're there for that emotional protection. They're there for that strategical protection. So you have that mental well-being protection,
Yeah.
and they show up, whether they're masculine or feminine, they show up as the masculine in your life because they provide that safe space, that safe container for you. So it's like the same. And you can have that relationship with life as a whole in general. Like the world can show up for you in that way too.
So on a more like societal, this might be controversial, but do you consider yourself a feminist in the terms that society seems to deem for it?
What does society seem to deem for?
I guess that's fair. It depends on your perspective of what part of society. At least for my, well, then no, that's a really good way of putting it. Because for my, like, I would consider myself a feminist in the sense that I believe that human rights, everybody should have the right to the same thing. If we're going to live in this society where everybody gets to, live certain ways, everybody should have the right to do everything. But I don't agree with certain things in feminism in terms of women should do all the same things that men should do. Like I see the logic in the and the I understand the basic energies behind the old way of like men going out and bringing home the money and the women staying home and being homekeepers. Not saying that that's how everything should be, but I understand how our natural energies flow into those positions,
Yeah, I think the biggest part about that is then accepting that a man is not going to do the things that a woman would do. Like if you want to live, like you can live in either reality.
Yeah.
But if you want to live in the reality where men bring home the bread and do the things, like they're probably not gonna take care of the house. They're probably not gonna, like because they're doing the other thing that's like 100%, and then you're doing 100%.
Yeah.
And if you wanted it to split up, like it could be split up, but I also see in the same way that you're saying, like how our energies naturally flow for that to be effective. But I also see that women can receive and get the bread.
Oh yeah.
Theoretically, by being in their feminine energy, by doing the thing, without actually having to go out and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It just comes to you.
And I can see men doing that too. So it's just about how you harness the energies. And I think that so to answer your question, am I a feminist? I don't like to put labels on myself in any way, like ever. Yeah. Because I feel what I feel and I believe what I believe in this moment. But if you came back to me 10 minutes from now, I might feel a different way and I might believe a different way, like in that moment.
Yeah.
So I do really think that I think the misconstruction is that feminine energy doesn't have the power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that we don't already have the power.
Yeah, that is, I would agree in the sense that that's like the biggest misconception for sure.
Because as you were saying, like the woman, it's most effective when the woman strategizes and then the man goes out, right? The woman has the power in that situation.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the way that I see the world, the woman has the power. Your feminine energy has the power in any situation. You just have to be willing enough to allow your imagination to live up to the reality that you want to experience.
Yeah.
You have to allow that to be like a possibility for you. Like you have to allow that perspective in order to receive that.
Yeah.
And once, because, so for example, a man who treats me a certain way will not treat some other woman the same way.
Right.
Because she has different standards, she has different values, she has different things that she likes in a relationship. We can have similar things, but there's no way that we are going to be the same.
Right.
Because I expect different things in a relationship. Like I expect like high I have really high standards, you know? So like even a guy who treats, I've seen this happen. Even a guy who treats another woman another way, he will not treat me that same way. He will not even think to try to treat me that same way. He will treat me according to my standards and my values. And why is that? Because the feminine has the power. Because the feminine is the one that sets the space. We're looking for this safe space to be held for us, and the key is that we actually hold the safe space for ourselves.
Right. Like,
That,
this is my space. This is how I like it. Hold on to this, please.
yeah, we're
Hold
taught
it
that we
for
need
me.
that masculine to hold it for us, but we don't. We can
Yeah.
hold it for ourselves, and then the masculine is magnetized to us that can also hold that space for us because
Yeah.
we're holding it ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's such a big misconception in I can only speak for female male relationships because that's only really what I've been in. But
Yeah.
there is that romanticized version of needing each other. And I think that is so toxic and problematic because it's like, no, I don't need you. I want you. And that is where you're like, you can be validated and you can feel good in this place, but you should only need yourself at the end of the day.
Exactly. But you need things in the physical, like you
Yeah, of
need
course.
like those things,
Yeah.
but like you don't need me specifically to give you those things.
Yeah.
Like it's just that you need those things, and
Yeah.
if I can give you those things and that aligns, then okay, great.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not like I need you specifically to give me these things or I am going to die.
Yeah.
I've
Die
felt that
without
way
you.
before though.
Oh,
So
me totally. I'm like when I love somebody so deeply and to the point where I get so dramatic about things. And I'm like, I love you. But then it's like almost even just in the relationship that I'm in now, I've learned so much about being like, nope, I don't need you. And me sharing that with you is not going to make you go away because it takes pressure off you, if anything.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely been in that dramatic space in relationships. I mean, we're both young because you're 24 also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're both, I feel like we're both in the stage of learning about adult relationships anyway. Because I don't know about you, but the idea of relationships in my high school, so toxic.
No, and even like my mom's idea of
Oh,
relationships,
really?
not good. Yeah, I kind of had to like build all of that by myself, like
Yeah.
pretty much all by myself. And I'm grateful for that, but because it showed me exactly what I didn't want so that I could create what I would want in relationships.
Yeah.
Which really at the end of the day for me is just like respect. And I think that's why I don't see myself as like a feminist or like something like that, because for me it's like I'm living in a reality where I respect myself. So if you don't respect me, you can have the door.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And
100%.
we can disagree and you can think certain things, but like at the end of the day, like as long as I am validating me, I don't need your validation. I love to have the conversation, but it's not like a need, which is the same
Yeah.
in romantic relationships. And I feel like once you cultivate that in any area of your life, it kind of just bleeds out into the other areas too, which
Yeah.
is really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You only
That like
accept. Sorry, go ahead.
that's like the quantum perspective. That's all I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
No, 100%. Yeah, you know what you accept, and that's all you're gonna get. Whereas
Yeah.
you can see the door. It's all good. Sorry, bud. Sorry, bye.
Love you though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so much love. I hope you figure it out.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So what do you think about then the the label of spirituality in that it's become? Because I feel like it's such a buzzword now, and it is a label of it
Yeah.
itself that's associated with a specific type of person.
Yeah. Um, the way that I see spirituality is like spirituality is a way of life. Like everything is spiritual. Everything.
Yeah.
Like even murder. I would argue even murder is
A hundred
spiritual.
percent. More people have died in the name of God than anything else.
So to me it's like I think people like to slap spirituality onto the label of self-development and
Mm,
like self-help, and they're not the same.
yeah.
Because spirituality allows acceptance for those dark moments, whereas self-help is like, oh, we got to get out of there, we got to get out of there, we got to,
Yeah.
constantly evolve, constantly, what is it, ascend. You know but no, we're not ascending. If anything, like I'm going back to my roots. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
um so for me spirituality is like the way that people use it is almost like the way people sugarcoat things. It's like such a blanket statement, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And it doesn't help that it's been capitalism got a hold of it. It's been
Yeah.
marketed a certain way, you know. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I it's funny that it gets grouped into religion, like as it grouped into that thing, like, are you Christian? Are you Buddhist? Are you spiritual? It's like, well, it's not really, it's like you said, I would argue that everybody is spiritual because we all have a spirit, a soul, something that connects us to everything. And our spirituality is however we perceive our life and how we function out of that core that we all have. It's not, fuck, you don't have to own beads or have a Buddha statue and, do yoga to be spiritual. That's like not what that is.
That's like one thing that I learned the most. Like the times in my life where I felt the most spiritual, I've had the least amount of things.
Mm,
Like the least amount of like tools, or
yeah.
I've had them, but I wasn't using them,
Yeah.
like I I find that the most intimate spiritual moments for me are the moments of like me just being purely connected with nature
Yeah.
or purely connected with source in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Just with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. That's so in terms of tools that you use, because like I would consider, like a tarot deck is a
Mhm.
tool. Um, because I've also heard you talk about like green magic and
Mhm.
like being a green witch and stuff. Do you separate that practice? Well, no, I guess you wouldn't because it's your practice. Um, how did you get into magic, I guess? Like, how did you see that as another sector of life that you wanted to partake in?
Once I had the abortion, it was like literally the only thing that made sense in my
Yeah.
life. Like one okay, so when I had the abortion, I realized that abortion is a very spiritual thing.
Yeah.
I also was connected to like an Amazonian witch, not in the physical, just like 5D or whatever. But I was connected to an Amazonian witch, and she like kind of helped me in terms of the way that I like perceived everything that was happening to me. Um, and she showed me that it took a great deal of power actually for me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, because one of my biggest desires in life is to be a mother.
Mm.
So to actively take away that opportunity from myself
Yeah.
was like killing a part of myself, like literally.
Yeah.
Um, and so during that experience, I also had a lot of past life remembrances. So I would experience like magic happenings like all the time. But I lived at my house in Pennsylvania with my mom in Warnersville, and that house just had a lot of like magic energy in it. And
Mhm.
it was actually right across the street from my childhood home where my grandma lived. And that house is where my grandma lived, and then her sister and like I don't know, my aunts and my other grandmas lived there too. So all of their stuff was there. And so we went through their stuff one summer because my grandma was moving into the nursing home, and we found all of these old books and like all of this stuff. And I was already like kind of spiritual, kind of witchy, like into that stuff. But that was like I found like handwritten notes, and I could just feel her energy, like this woman I'd never met before. I could feel
Yeah.
her energy in the books, and um I just could feel that she was a witch. Like I could feel that she was a witch. And so I took all those books over to my mom's house, and I had them in that house. And right after that happened, I went on a road trip all across the US. And during that road trip, I just had all these past life experiences, remembrances where I was like a shaman, where I was like a witch, where I was involved in like these ceremonial settings. I would have dreams, I would have vivid visions. I had one experience where I was with my friend and we were in Louise, no, Al Arkansas. We were in Arkansas, and we were in the town that George Bush was born in. And it was so creepy there, and the
Really.
energy was so disgusting and weird. And just like we got lost, we got trapped in a circle and we couldn't get out in the middle of the night. It was crazy. All the sex trafficking stuff coming up, like crazy stuff. But we did a mushroom ceremony there. And honestly, like I didn't really feel the mushrooms. It was more for my friend. And I was just having, like, I was kind of just holding space for her. And I had an experience where there was this road and I could walk down. I had the selenite wand in my hand, and I just had the wand, and it was like my magic wand. And I was re like closing a portal from the past of dark magic, of all of this stuff, because I realized like the energy that I was involving myself in terms of like sex and all the things and why I had the abortion in the first place was all dark magic. It was all
Yeah.
related to dark magic,
Yeah.
darker energies, and I didn't want to embody that anymore. So I literally like closed the door to that so that I could invite in that green energy, that like life force magic,
Yeah.
which comes with like free flowing water and all the things. And that's like at the time where I had my machine, my conga machine, for like a year at that point. So it was like a transformative period for me. And I had just left my ex. I was getting rid of those toxic tendencies being in that relationship. And that period of time was the period of time where I feel like I experienced the most like magic, I would say, because I would just find all these synchronicities. And it would just be like, and after I read The Celestine Prophecy, which is a great
Oh,
book by
yeah.
James
I
Redfield.
want to read that book so bad.
Yeah, after I read that, it was like so easy for me to see the magic in everything and the magic in daily life. And it helped me because I was in such a rut. So it was really easy for me to go high because I was in such a rut, you know? So it
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
easy for me to be so delusional, me to be like, oh, that is possible, because I had already like been traversing those limitations within my own mind already.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, so there was one after I got back from that road trip around the US. I was at my house, and there was this park nearby that I'd like never gone to. I had gone there to the water, but not to the park. And so we went and we sat in the park and we had another mushroom ceremony there. And in that mushroom ceremony, it was very intentional. And I connected to the energy of the earth, and like I swear, like I became like Mother Earth. Like I literally felt like the embodiment of Mother Earth, and it was like the land was teaching me things about the people that had been on the land before. And this had happened to me before in other places, but this experience was like I could feel the whole earth.
Yeah.
Like at one point I could feel the whole earth, and like I could feel like just the different polarities, different dualities of reality that exist. And because I'm so connected to like, you know, the trees and all the things, like things were just speaking to me, and it was like I was it was almost like I was initiated as like a goddess, like, and
Mm,
then like the earth is just like here to serve me. And that's kind of how I perceive magic to
mm,
be, is like the earth serving you. It's like earth energy just kind of serving you. Like that's really what
yeah.
magic is. And after that
Working with it.
experience,
Yeah.
yeah, and after that experience I just continued to work with the elements, like, and that's really it, like just working with the elements and having appreciation, having that conscious conversation, that conscious connection to source, even in like the smallest of moments.
Yeah.
That that's like how I do magic. And then I can intentionally do things, but having that stream is what makes the intentional things so much more powerful, because
Right.
I have that continuous stream, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
That's so, first of all, it's so crazy because I meant to say this when you first brought it up. How old were you when you had your abortion?
19.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah. And I
Wow.
was like, I didn't have the same experience of it because I also like one of my great desires in life is to be a mother. But at that point in time, I felt so disconnected from my body because I was in such hatred of it at that point. But that's so crazy. I had a feeling it was at 19 as well. I was like, I bet you we had it at the same age.
So
Um,
divine. Um,
it is so crazy how those things work out. Like what a coincidence, right? Or whatever you want to call
yeah.
it. But um, but yeah, in the sense of magic, and I feel like that is also a word that has just been had so many specific things attached to it. And so when you say that to people, it creates this immediate resistance because it's like you're not a fucking wizard, you can't do magic, you know, Wingardium Leviosa over here, whatever the fuck. And it's like, no, but that is one of the things that can be problematic with all of the explanation, over explanation we have of everything, is it takes the magic out of life that already exists.
Yes.
Like
100.
life itself is just magical. Like it's fucking crazy. You walk down the street and you see a flower and you're like, well, how the fuck is it doing that? Like, how is it doing that? You can explain it all you want, but how the fuck is it doing that right now? And it's just it's so much more ingrained. Magic is so much more ingrained into our daily lives than I think people understand. Like it's literally just a part of our being. And when you, like you said, have that stream and you could connect to that stream of consciousness and connect to the elements in some way, that's when you have intention and you can almost manipulate it in a certain way with more intention. And oh
Yeah, exactly.
my God, I just hope to like be around a lot of people who understand that more one day.
It's amazing that you brought that up though, that like the duality of the word magic, because when I was closing that portal, that's literally the two worlds that I was between, was the world that demonized magic, that would like hang me for witchcraft, and the
Mhm.
world where acceptance was. And that
Yeah.
meant that I had to accept the versions of myself that were ridiculed for doing nothing wrong, that were shamed for doing nothing wrong, that I
Yeah.
had to accept all of those hate, that anger, that, you know, all that rage. I had to
Yeah.
evolve through that.
Yeah. And there
Really
is
cool.
so much rage. Like I don't know if I recently finished this book called Witch by I think her name is Lisa Lester. Have you ever read that book?
Mm-mm, no, but it sounds good.
Highly recommend. But she goes over how all women are witches just in our being because it's like magic is just a part of our being. But I'm sure you've had the experience of those kind of like past life memories where all that anger comes up because
Yeah.
the witch trials that at least we learned about in school did not
Mhm.
just happen a couple hundred years ago in
Oh, yeah.
Salem. Like they've been happening forever. And not only did they burn women, they pit them against each other. And there's just like thousands of years of this history with almost all women of just being prosecuted for being themselves. And
Mhm.
I have never felt so much unexplainable anger in my life to the point where I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
Shit's fucking
Yeah.
wild.
That's why somatics is so key because, like, oh my God, without somatics, you can't process any of that anger or rage. Like, it becomes reactionary, and then you create, like, you basically self sabotage your own reality.
My God,
So,
it's so yeah. Explain somatic, what somatic healing is.
yeah, so somatic healing is like basically working. So, as those emotions come up, they're stored in your body
Yeah.
generationally and lineage from your lineage. They're stored in your body. So, if you can pinpoint the area in your body where that emotion is surfacing, you can, or if you can just pinpoint that emotion enough, you can go into that as a portal.
Mm-hmm.
And through that portal, you can create that energy of neutrality by introducing new stories, introducing a new perspective, a new way of looking at it, so that you're no longer trapped in the victim mentality where you feel the rage.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the only reason that you feel the rage is because you feel like you have no power. You feel like you're powerless.
yeah,
So if you can give that version of yourself the power back, which is basically like going through the body and making yourself feel safe, making yourself feel like you have power, whether it's through affirmation. Sometimes people need touch. Sometimes people need like complete darkness.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes people need to like lay in the sun. Some people need to lay in the sand, go to the beach. Like it depends. It
Yeah, yeah,
depends.
yeah,
Some people need to eat certain foods. Like it depends for you. Sometimes you got to sneeze. Sometimes you got to release stuff. Sometimes you got to fart. Sometimes you got to burp. I've been
yeah.
burping a lot lately. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Apparently that's like grief and worry is burping. So like I've been
Wow.
releasing a lot of grief and worry. Um, so yeah, that's like kind of what somatics is basically just like going into the body as a portal because like the technology is really in the body.
Yeah,
And if you can hone in on the technology and improve the technology and clean the technology out, like obviously it's gonna work better. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
going into your old hard drives and like taking out all those old files that you
yeah,
don't want to look at anymore.
yeah. Or the
And
files that
and
were there from somebody who had the computer before you.
exactly. And then putting in new files that make you feel better that kind of give you a generalized
Yeah,
experience rather than so specific.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah. And
And
then also,
no, go
sorry,
ahead. No, go ahead.
also just like learning to balance. So like somatics is also learning to put yourself in risk, learning to put yourself on edge and come back to that balance. And then also like maybe putting yourself like not doing as much and then coming back to balance, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
finding
yeah,
balance, being able to emotionally regulate your nervous system through
yeah,
any experience.
yeah. That's huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
God. I was gonna just say how just how important and how crazy it is how many things we do have stored in the body from lifetimes before us and how hard that can be to conceptualize because I'm sure a lot of people feel that, oh, you have to believe in reincarnation for that kind of thing. But even just if you follow your literal family lineage, it's like, okay, if my grandparents lived in a time of war and they had to deal with the constant fear of being bombed or being attacked or whatever, and they developed skills to be able to survive that way, those habits get passed down through your family line. Like that's just how that works on that level too, not even to think about the past lives that you've had that are connected to different lineages. Like, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I got into past lives in the first place was because I was like going back to the past life of my childhood continuously.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, if I could do this, that means that there's probably more. And
Yeah.
then I realized that the reason that I needed to go back and do the more is because that's why I was incarnated in this life in the
Yeah.
first place to clear that energy to finally learn that lesson and
Yeah.
break through. Yeah, it's crazy how everything is really connected. And like honestly, like that version, that that younger version of you, like that is a past life. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
like
Like there is such an idea of like what a past life means because we try and relate everything to physical form as much as we can because that's the only way we understand things, really. And
yeah.
so it can be really hard to conceptualize those things, just an idea. But yeah, exactly. Like me 10 minutes ago was a past life. That was a life I
Yeah.
was living 10 minutes ago. That's in the past. Like it's a lot simpler than these complex ideas that we make it seem, for sure.
And not everything is set in stone, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like we try to categorize because we want it to be like in this box, but like even if we put it in the box, we're gonna take it out of the box or it's gonna get out of the box on its own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Everything is not so black and white.
you can't do it like that. It's not fun to do it like that because then you always have the answers, and like sometimes it's fun to find the answers, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And answers are like reality is always shifting. Answers are always shifting.
Yeah,
You can't have all the answers all the time. Like it just doesn't work.
exactly.
It's even
Wouldn't make sense.
yeah, exactly. Even scientists do that. Like they change rules in science. I was listening to this I forget the guy's name, I forget the talk, but it was a TED talk that later wound up being removed from TED's YouTube channel. Um, but he was saying that he looked back in history and saw that there was a fluctuation in the calculations of big G, like of gravity, in terms of its measurement. And he went and talked to a professor who was specialized in that place, and he goes, "Oh, you found our like most shameful period in history where everybody across the boards was getting these different measurements." And then he was like, "But we fixed that. We just changed the definition of X, Y, and Z, so it's not a problem anymore."
Literally, that's it. That's you just change your perception and that was it.
Yeah. I was like, well, people knew that that's how even big science works. Like, you know that that's just how life is. You got to change. And that's the thing too with like quantum physics and physics in general. We change our definitions to fit our discoveries. We don't try and find the discoveries to fit the definitions we already have. That's not how that works. But
That's manipulation.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't let me see if I had any other things, but this has been awesome. And I'm like so grateful because this is our first like real sit down chat in general anyway. But yeah, fuck man. I'm like a little bit out of it today, but I'm so happy that we've had this conversation.
Me too. I feel like this is very nuanced.
Hmm. And that's how I want it to be. Like
Hmm.
I want everybody to share their personal experience and yeah, get into all the nuances of everything that life is, you know, because
Yeah.
everybody's is so different, even when there are similarities. Um, I do
Yeah.
wanted to ask just for fun because
Hmm.
I also saw that you do aura readings. What's my aura?
You have like a lot of yellow and blue.
I like that. What do those mean to you?
Um, so blue, so there's like yellow mostly around your crown, which shows me that you're very like your actions are very connected to the divine. Like you're very connected to the divine in that way. And then the blue I see around like your ears, kind of. Like it's more like it's like on the outside of the yellow, but like the yellow like the yellow's right there at the top, and then like the blue is on around the outside, but then there's more yellow at the top, but there's blue down here. Okay, if that makes sense. And then, but to me, that tells me that you're very in tune with like your intuition. You have a very strong intuition, and you tend to lead your life with that.
Yeah, that's very true. How do
Yeah.
you, when you see auras, how do you see it in a very physical form, or is it, do you have to focus on something? Like how do you specifically read them?
I'm not like looking for it because
Right.
if I was looking for it all the time, I would get so overwhelmed by everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
so you asked me and I just saw it like a little blink
Hmm.
and I was just like, yeah, but typically like if I'm gonna like read your aura, it's like I'll ask you some questions generally, and then I'll try and figure out based on what I see what's in your aura, like the stories more so,
Mm,
um, rather than like this is your energy. It's more like I'll try and like pinpoint the stories and then help
right.
you. Okay. Yeah. But I don't the way that I don't like I've always had really bad eyesight and I think that's
Oh,
because of
really?
yeah, I think that's because I'm literally just like gifted in that way. Like I'm supposed to have bad eyesight. But it's funny because my bad eyesight is what allows me to see like energy. Like
Mm,
I can see energy around people, I can see energy in the clouds, I can see certain things that people don't see, you know.
yeah.
Um So I don't like look for things, but like if it's like brought to my attention, I'll see it, or if I'm meant to see it, I'll see it, or if I'm actually looking for it, if it's like you tell me like look for it, like I'll
Yeah,
look
yeah,
for it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's not, and I just see like colors, and then the colors make me feel a feeling, and then I interpret the feeling through words.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I know aura is pretty much always connected to color. And
Yeah.
I don't I've been able to see like literal color around certain things when I focus on it.
Hmm.
Because I think I'm more of a feeler. There's clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient. I'm definitely more like clairsentient and clairaudient. Like visuals are not my main thing. I think part of that is still like a belief thing that I have going on because my eyes are like my biggest connection to the physical world. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, but
Yeah, I tend to, so when I see things like that, it's because I'm really detached from the physical.
yeah, that makes
And that
sense.
also is because I don't wear glasses. I stopped wearing contacts. Like I don't try and make my eyesight better. Like I want it to be this way. Like
So
I
you
used to
actually
wear,
had a prescription.
yeah, I used to wear glasses. I used to wear contacts every day, like religiously. But I learned that you could actually stretch your eye muscles without using contacts, and it could help your eyesight anyway. So I
Yeah,
started doing that for a while, and it was helping me. And then I kind of like just learned to like being not able to see. It kind of
yeah.
really benefits me
That's
because I'm
so
so
interesting.
sensitive. So then I don't pick up on certain things that I'm not supposed to see, and then I know that when I see things, I'm really supposed to see it.
That makes sense. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. But I
That's
still wear
really
my
cool.
glasses to like watch TV or something like that. It
Okay, like
depends,
if you want to see some, yeah,
but I don't like need them to go outside to, you know,
function.
yeah, to
I
feel
hear you.
safe.
You
Yeah.
don't walk outside like, all right, here we go again.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
gonna
like,
drive to the grocery store. Oh my God. Yeah, these are just blue light glasses. They're for fashion and for
yeah. I like blue light glasses too. I think they're nice. They help when you're especially on the computer a
oh
lot.
yeah. Oh yeah. How much of your life is spent like doing things online, would you say?
It depends on the period of my life, but it's been more over the past few years. I used to be really like, I used to not share a lot on social media at all.
Yeah.
I used to be really reserved. If I would share, it was very like curated and articulated, and like I wanted you to think about me a certain way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I had a bad relationship with social media for a while, so it made me not want to be on it.
Yeah.
But now I find that a lot of what I do is online,
Yeah.
but at the same time, everything that I'm doing in my offline life benefits my online life, and my
Yeah.
online life benefits my offline life. It's like kind of
Yeah.
like, you know,
Finding that balance.
but I would say that like I'm definitely like identified by social media. Like people know me because of social media.
Yeah.
And if you don't know me because of social media, it's because we had like a genuine interaction and we met because of like friends or something like
Yeah,
that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, because I find myself struggling these days. I mean, I still work in an office or I work at an acupuncture clinic.
Mhm. That's cool.
So thanks. Um, but so I spend time in front of a screen like at work there because I'm a care coordinator and receptionist and all that jazz. And then I spend time online doing my own
Great.
stuff. And so I find myself kind of fighting with myself in terms of how much time I'm spending on my screens because I'm like, oh, I really don't want to be, living this life where I'm just enthralled in my technology and like taken over by it. But I have to kind of remember that, like you said, exactly where I'm going is to a place where there is a balance and I'm able to be authentic on both sides and they're able to benefit each other. And it's not, one taking over the other or vice versa. So,
Mhm. Also with that, whenever you have those thoughts, it's just a reminder to be more appreciative when you're not on social media. Like
yeah.
be intentionally appreciative, like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not on my phone right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so
Presence.
glad I have this time to just like relax. But
Yeah.
I find that I get in the same thing too, and I don't even work at an office job. So it's just like about actually taking the time to sit with yourself and be like, oh, I'm safe here and I don't need to be on social media. I don't need to be on a screen. Like I can, everything is already done, kind of that vibe
Yeah.
of like everything's already accomplished. Like it's cool for me to just kind of sit back and relax and let it do its thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll find my balance. I'm working towards. I definitely like feel soon that I'm gonna be dictating my own time fully soon and not working for somebody else. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I love the woman I work for. She's amazing and I'm really glad I'm there to help her right now, but oh my God, I don't want to
No,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's just not doesn't make sense.
What was your last like job for somebody else?
I was a server at a beach bar.
Yeah.
Super like it was just an easy way to make money, honestly. Easy
No,
money.
totally. I was in the service industry too, like,
Yeah.
but shit's
It's so
exhausting.
easy. It's exhausting and also like I am worth so much more.
There you
So
go.
I thought that was a lot of money. No.
That is one thing I like right off the bat love about you. Like I can tell you know your value. And I think that in and of itself is really valuable because so many people don't. And because like I went when I was looking at your website, I was like, shit, I wouldn't feel the confidence to charge this for something. But then I'm like, no, like that's my time. And I recently just had a situation where I was filming content for somebody and it wound up not being so clear and they didn't really give the directions and they have revisions, but it was a job for a friend. And so it was like, here, I'll throw you $100 and you could do this. And then I'm like, by the end of it, I'm like, no, the time that I spent on this was well worth more than $100. So I'm kind of in that phase of my life right now where I'm learning my value in monetary perspective, because I think I've had such a just like a headbutting with money in it itself and my relationship with it, of course, and what money means and all that stuff. But I gotta let that shit go. I gotta let that shit go, because I'm
Yeah.
tired of doing favors for people for nothing in return. And
Hmm.
it's not like I don't want to help people, but I've given so much of myself just because I'm like, nah, money, don't worry about it. No, money. It's like you're tight on
Hmm.
money. Like, don't, like, no, sorry.
Hmm. I need it.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. Um, I didn't know my value for the longest time. That's why I'm so adamant about knowing my value now because it's been a progression of my whole life, like not knowing my value to continuously just like stepping up for my value. And I had clients in the past where I had lower prices and I ended up doing crazy amounts more and they were expecting way more from me because not only was I not clear, but I wasn't charging enough.
yeah. Yeah.
Because the level of client that I want is gonna see that price and they're gonna be like, "Oh, it makes sense."
Yeah.
Just like you did. You were literally like, "Ah," but then you're like, "Oh, it makes sense."
Yeah.
Like you're like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah. No, totally. Like fucking
Yeah,
my time is worth it.
exactly. And the
And
and the
yeah.
transformation is like is crazy. And when you have that dedication on both sides, that's what makes the transformation so
So useful and
powerful.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like when you know your value and you're able to put a monetary figure to it, um, people are going to respect it. Like the people who invest in you are going to be serious about it. It's not going to be people like, oh yeah, sure, I got $15. Because then it's almost like it's easier to get into a situation where you both wind up having your time wasted.
Exactly. And
It's
you
like,
neither of you get the results that you want. And then you got bad reviews floating around. And then it's
right?
like, what do you even there's no integrity in your business because you're just
Yeah,
there for the sale. You're not there for the actual
value.
relationship or the value. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, girl, I respect you. I respect the fuck out of you. For real.
Thanks. I
She's doing the
respect you
thing.
too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's
I saw the
Cooper.
other one floating around in the back too.
So Cooper, he's an old man now. He's actually famous here. He has like the house that we're in, there's a window right here that leads right directly onto the street, and there's a window that he'll sit out of. And people will come by and say hi to him. And there's like a little plaque outside that says Coop on the Stoop. He has an
Coop on the
Instagram,
stoop.
Coop on the Stoop. And then the other dog's name is Bradley.
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. But the other crazy thing about that is Cooper was here first and Bradley was adopted and already had that name.
That's weird.
So we're podcasting with a legend right
Yeah.
there. He's a legend. I've heard people walk by when the window is closed and be like, "Oh, Cooper's not here." Like like they were showing their family on a tour around LA and like this is a spot that they came to.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But
Weird.
yeah, that's Coop on the Stoop. Well, what time is
I
it?
have a question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Are you planning on staying in LA for like what are you planning on staying in LA?
Like living here for
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, because I knew you were talking about like leaving, so
Yeah. No, we're kind of figuring out what we want to do right now because obviously we're in the process of building. So
Mhm.
once our financial situation is in a place for us to do something more about it, we're playing with those ideas now. But what we're thinking of is because we really like the idea of van life because we want to be able to pick up and go wherever we are, and we have enough family and friends around the place to where we can park certain places for extended periods of time. But also my boyfriend's a filmmaker, like I'm doing this stuff, so we have a lot of equipment.
creatively you
Yeah,
need like a space.
we
Yeah.
need a creative space. So what we are thinking of doing is eventually when we transition over to van life is keeping the studio that we have now because our landlords, we're friends with them, they're super great people, they let us do whatever we want to the space. We might just turn that into an art studio, like a podcasting, a filming studio to base our stuff out of, and then have our travel gear that we can bring with us so that we always have a place to come back to. So I think that's kind of what our plan is. And because LA is not, yeah, it's not where I want to spend my most time, but if I'm here working and I already know where everything is and I have access to everything that I need, I know there's a camera store that has a certain type of lens if we need to go down there and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of the plan.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that that could really like be beautiful for you in terms of like having because I know people that have done that in the
Yeah.
past, specifically in LA,
Yeah.
and they really liked it. They had two dogs and they really liked it.
Mm.
You don't have the dogs, but I mean
No,
you
I
have
know.
the house with them, so um but yeah, they really liked it. They really liked being able to pick up and go when they wanted, but then also
Yeah.
still having like the space to come back to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then I think that's what we need. Like even in our astrology charts, like I have so many planets in the fourth house and same thing with him. I think his Mercury is in the fourth house. So he's very like home, he thinks very in terms of house and home. And
Mhm.
also it's kind of a central place for both of our families. His family is from the Bay Area and mine's from here in LA. So
Yeah.
it's a good place for us to base. Like that's why we moved out here anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're figuring it out, but it's closer than it felt like last year. Like last year, it didn't work out is when we first started thinking of doing van life, but it was because it was coming from the energy of just wanting to get out, like just wanting to leave, wanting to be an escape. Like, oh, I just want to be traveling. I don't want to be around all this stuff, yada yada yada. But now I'm like, no, okay, you can come to accept the lessons that I'm learning living here and all those things, and just kind of letting it unfold as it does. So we'll see.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so beautiful. I
Yeah,
love to
I'm
hear
so
that.
excited. How about you? Are you planning on staying where you're at for a while? No.
I have no idea. My lease
Yeah.
is up in like 3 months, so we'll see. I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't like I'm so bad at making plans because I am an impulsive like I feel
I
things, you
hear
know?
you. Yeah, no, I hear you.
Like and last time I wanted to renew my lease or I got this apartment, I like kind of didn't really want to get it and things could have gone way differently if I
Yeah.
didn't get this apartment.
Yeah.
So not saying better or worse, but just like
Totally
so
different.
I just want to be open to
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Like my partner constantly asks me, it's like, so what do we play? Like, what do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I have all these loose plans for things, but at the end of the day, I know I'm like, when the situation is here, we'll know it's here. Like, it'll happen when it's gonna happen and we'll fucking
Yeah.
know about it. Like,
Yeah.
you can't plan too hardcore for things because then you get let down and your expectations, you have to throw them out the window because I don't
And
fucking know.
it becomes like a chase or like, something like that. Like, and it's just like, no, like I'd rather just like feel into like, we'll see how
Yeah.
it feels as
Yeah.
we approach
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
then you wind up in situations where like, whoa, this is so not right. Like I was
Well, you have
trying
to like
so
force
hard.
yourself. Yeah, exactly. Like I had to kick out my roommate, all that shit. Like that was so unnecessary. It didn't really need to happen like that. But I had to force myself into it. But now I'm happy and it's fine. But I don't want to force myself again,
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, 100%.
yeah.
Oh my God. I've had some horrible roommate situations. I had to kick out a roommate. Long story short, he wound up being like seriously bipolar and didn't tell me. He had like a
Oh my
wild
god.
episode one night, and I was like, whoa, you
Oh
need to
my god.
leave.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, so not trying to force anything for that exact
Yeah,
reason.
exactly. Yeah.
But
But I want to come to LA though. I want to be in Cali. Like
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, whenever
So
you do, I gotta play. Fuck, you can stay at my grandma's house, no problem.
okay, cool.
She's a little bit outside of the city, so it's a little bit slower, but yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, I would love to do that. I just need to get like I would want to get a rental car. So I
Oh
just need
yeah,
to
100%.
get enough to get a rental car and then yeah, I'll be out there and
Oh,
I'll see.
woohoo. All right, well, I feel like now might be a good time to wrap it up because it's been just over 2 hours.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we'll have enough.
that was such a good first episode together. Thank you so much. And if you wanna, now would be the time. If you want to plug yourself, where can people find you? What are you doing? Go ahead and drop that.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, like this is such a vibe, such a great
Yeah.
conversation. I love talking to you. Um, yeah, so you can find me at magicalmads.com or Magical Mads, like on literally any platform. I'm on basically everything. And it's all Magical Mads.
Magical
um,
with a K, not a C.
yes, magical with just a K. And yeah, I have a special monthly membership, which is called To Infinity and Beyond Portal, which is like the most expansive spiritual, entrepreneurial, creative portal for you. It's like witchy vibes with business vibes, with NLP vibes, with like mental health vibes, like all the things helping you and guiding you. And that's like a space that we have a monthly membership or yearly, you can do yearly. And we have our monthly calls that are in there, and it's such an expansive place. Like the girls that are in there love it. There's one guy in there, he loves it, like learned so much from it already. And we're just continuing to grow. So
Oh, that's
that's my
awesome.
little plug.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, people, you know where to find her. This was episode 2 of We're Not Woke, and I don't have a specific Instagram account for this yet, but you can find this on YouTube and Spotify. I think that's the plan. I'm still figuring all that out. Honestly, I haven't even posted the first episode yet. So,
I can help you. I can help you.
all
So
right. Mhm.
anchor.fm, go to that. It will help you set up your podcast. So easy to import audio, and it'll send it out to every single streaming platform for you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right, I'm gonna end the recording. We'll close it out there. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Mads, and I know you'll be on again soon. So,
Yes,
all
of
right,
course.
bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank